My name is Janet Pinto. I'm Curriki's Chief Academic Officer and Chief Marketing Officer, and I'm so pleased to welcome you to our webinar today. We're going to be talking about publishing interactive content with Curriki Studio. Before we begin, let's go through some quick tips to make sure you have a great webinar experience. Please put your questions in the chat, close any applications that you're not using for bandwidth purposes. And along the way, please post your questions in the chat. We'll answer some questions directly there, and we'll save some others to answer at the end during the Q&A. Oh, and please tweet your thoughts using the hashtag you see here, CurrikiStudio webinar. Today's presenters are Scott McNealy, open source pioneer, founder and former CEO of Sun Microsystems. He's also the co-founder and board member of Curriki, which is a nonprofit organization. We also have Curriki's CEO, Keith Kostrzewski, Abby Ross, Curriki's head of product, Leo Cunha, who is Curriki's CTO, Mike Francis, Curriki's integration consultant, has also joined us, and a special guest, Mark Leuba, VP of Product Management at IMFS Global. And Scott is going to kick us off.
Big important topic, obviously, with everybody, and nobody feels really comfortable with exactly how we're going to roll out K-12 education here in the fall. And one of the things that has become clear is that we are going to have remote learning experiences either full-time or as a hybrid going forward in businesses, in schools, in government agencies. And we've been working hard on trying to provide some really great tools to allow people to create great learning experiences. That's what the Curriki Studio is all about. And CurrikiGo is going to be the main topic of conversation. We have a long history with a lot of the people on the board and part of the Curriki effort in creating development architectures, authoring tools, authoring studios. We did that with the Java Studio to create internet apps. And that was a wildly successful project. It was mostly open source and driven from a .com company called Sun Microsystems. CurrikiStudio is being driven by a .org. It is all free and open source. It's available for download or for access, and we're working with all of the major cloud suppliers to bring CurrikiStudio to you as part of their marketplaces. Stay tuned. There'll be a lot of great announcements on that coming forward. But an important component of all of this is with Java Studio, you could create an internet app, but we had the Java virtual machine out there running on everything so that it was a write once, run anywhere kind of environment. And CurrikiGo is the analogous component of the Java VM in the sense that CurrikiGo allows you to do one button exporting either to email or to a website or to any of the leading LMSs and content management systems out there. Some very, very cool technology. So you get, in the same way we had write once, run anywhere with Java Studio and the Java VM, we have author once and publish anywhere with CurrikiStudio and CurrikiGo. Very cool technology, very, very interesting ease of use issue that everybody in the K-12 space has been dealing with. So without any more chat from me, let's get to the gurus here who understand and can talk you through what we're doing with CurrikiStudio and CurrikiGo. So thank you all for being here, and stay tuned.
For that introduction, Scott. Hi, everybody. My name is Abby Ross. I am the head of product here at Curriki. And I am going to do an overview demo of Curriki Studio and then walk you through how through Curriki Studio we're able to publish to other environments using CurrikiGo. Okay, I'm sharing my screen. And so to do a quick overview, the two products that I'm going to show you today are Curriki Studio, which is our rapid authoring tool that allows creators to build interactive, rich learning experiences. And then CurrikiGo is our smart publishing system that allows you to connect your learning experience you created in CurrikiStudio directly to your learners. CurrikiStudio is changing the way that educational experiences are designed, created, and delivered to a new generation of learners. We built CurrikiStudio because we realized that a lot of the existing resources today aren't interactive by design. There's a lot of really great content and curriculum that is stuck in paper and pencil, worksheets, PDFs, and Google Docs. And we know that for K-12 institutions, nonprofit organizations, or even corporate training, that building a learning experience that is interactive by design can be technical and expensive. And as we think about this new world of distance learning and flipped classroom, a lot of the existing digital courseware is designed for a traditional classroom setting. So we work quickly here to deliver something to market that makes for a no coding knowledge required, the ability for content authors to easily build engaging, interactive courses for free. Our partners range from K-12 institutions, higher ed, trade school, nonprofits, subject matter experts, really anybody with an idea that wants to make that content interactive to get it in the hands of learners. The other thing is, with CurrikiStudio, we imagine this being a one-stop shop for interactive learning activities. There are over 200,000 ed tech tools that teachers have to cobble together to make interactive learning experiences. With CurrikiStudio, this one-stop shop for building, delivering, and maintaining interactive content that seamlessly gets delivered to a preferred LMS means that you don't have to cobble together different solutions and can provide a cohesive learning experience for your students. What I'll show you in CurrikiStudio is that we have over 40 learning activity types, ranging from an essay to memory games to interactive videos. And our goal is to make that from 40 to 400 to 4,000 with future integrations, really with the goal of how do we bring a digital 21st century learning experience directly into the hands of kids and create that environment for authoring. So what I'll show you with CurrikiStudio and CurrikiGo is how to create a learning program, how to find learning activity types and add your content to those activities, how to create a playlist, arrange and rearrange them, and then leveraging CurrikiGo, how we enable the distribution to a leading learning management system, or you can distribute that in whatever way makes most sense for your product and learners. So CurrikiGo is that smart publishing system that we're going to talk about today that removes the barriers of connecting your immersive content with your learners. So in the vein of Java Studio and Java Virtual Machine, it really becomes a create once, publish everywhere. We provide all of the widgets and backend material to handle the content and integrate to publishing. So specifically for K-12 and higher ed institutions, what this looks like is a one-click publish to the top learning management systems or possibly even a website or a microsite. Our existing LMS partnerships today are Canvas, Google Classroom, and Moodle, with coming soon for Desire to Learn, Schoology, and Guru. And not to steal anyone's thunder here, but we are a IMFS Global certified partner, and you'll get to hear a little bit about the strategy and technology architecture that enables this publishing. For content creators and organizations, you can also publish your experience to a mobile app, a mobile optimized experience, integrate within CMS platforms, or take it as a self-executable file. And this is not an either or, it's really meant to be an and. So if you are a content creator that strives to get your learning experience into the hands of students, we are providing that connector code to make it easy. So I'm gonna jump in and show you what this looks like. So I'm logging into CurrikiStudio right now. As an example teacher. So my first example that I want to show you is what this might look like for a educator. All right, so I'm logged in. You can see that we have real-time help and support with also a knowledge base of all the information on how to get started with CurrikiStudio. I'm going to show you what this looks like in an example 6th grade math classroom. So I'm going to show you what it looks like first, kind of previewing the interactive experience, and then I'll show you how I created it. So first, I'm going to click into my playlist. And you can see that we start with an agenda to help students know what they're going to do. My next activity is a warm-up. And this example lesson is all about fractions. So we start right away with a fun memory game, kind of a nice little bell ringer, where I am matching the different decimals with their fractions. I thought I knew the answer. Dang. Here's then an example of writing in, and I can check my answers. I also have, as you see here, we allow for retry, showing solution, awarding points. These are all things that the content author can customize to allow for customizing the learning experience to fit the needs of your learners. Here's an example of some videos that are meant to be resources for students. As I go to my next example, you can see what the interactive video looks like. So when we think about engaging students with content and curriculum, a lot of really great content resides in videos right now, but it's pretty passive. So we wanted to make these examples so that students are asked to lean and engage with the content. If you see these dots at the bottom, you'll notice that we've asked the students to prompt, I'm not actually looking at my questions here, prompt the student to lean in and engage in a way that they might not normally with a video. There's also dragging and dropping. And like I said, over 40 different activity types come together to make this an example of how these learning experiences come together. So that's what it looks like from within CurrikiStudio if I'm a content creator creating an example lesson. This is an example that I think is pretty relevant to K-12 districts. I'm going to show you a quick higher ed or adult learning example, and that's where I'll show you how CurrikiStudio, real quick, let me show you how we create these. So I'm going to go into this math example and create an example. So create a new project. I'm going to do math, webinar, demo. Upload an image, demo for webinar. Now, I'm going to go into build mode. And this is where I can create playlists. So overview, and then I might do an example of long division. I can go ahead and arrange and rearrange these in whatever order makes sense. Now I'm going to go through and add a resource. So this is where we have the 40 different activity type activations. You saw a variety here. You saw matching, you saw drag and drop. I'm going to show what it looks like with the interactive video. So long division video. I'll upload a thumbnail so it's visually cueing to the user where they are. And then I can tag a subject and education level. This is important as we think about publishing to the learning management systems using CurrikiGo, because it's this metadata that allows the teachers to be able to find and use content that has been published through CurrikiStudio. So as I pull up my example video, I will start by naming it long division. I will add a video, copy and paste it in, insert, and now I can add an interaction. So here's where my video is. I can fast forward to a part where I want to engage the students with learning. Maybe I'll ask a true/false question, for example. And this is where I can customize. How long do I want the prompt to be on for the student? Do I want to pause it so they have to interact with it? Long division is fun. That is a true/false. That is clearly true. And then I will put in, I can customize my behavioral settings. Do I want to enable retry, showing solution, checking? What happens if they get it right? What happens if they get it wrong? Add activity. If the student gets 5 questions in a row incorrect, maybe I want to take them back to review different material. So it's pretty easy to customize it to the goals of the instructional designer. I can now finish this example. Now I'm going to preview the project just so you can see this come full circle. I will publish, or I will preview it. And as you can see the video load, you can see this little dot here at the bottom. I'm going to fast forward to that. And drum roll, please. There is a prompt to ask the student Goodness sakes. Here it is. True or false, long division is true, check. I got a point for that. So that is how you use Curriki Studio to author and create dynamic interactive content. I now want to show you an example in Curriki Studio of what a higher education or adult learning product might look like. So Victory Lap is a sales accelerator to help young professionals. We've created a curriculum that really is all around sales, entrepreneurship, and it's built by salespeople to help young professionals get to know what it's like to work in sales. So this is an example where we've really customized the content and the activity types to be a little bit more rigorous and designed in a way that is more reflective of the content material. Asking them, kind of giving them information, but still asking them to engage with content and curricular material. So with this example, I want to show you how I can publish and share this to get it in the hands of, in this example, Victory Lap's learners, sales young professionals. So I have a couple of options. If I take this example playlist, Why Sales, I'm going to click into Preview Project. And the first option I have is to share the project. When I toggle this button on, I have a couple options. One is I can just open it in a direct URL copy, that it can be engaged with in a dynamic web form. Or I can share this project to Google Classroom. So if I'm an educator with a Google Classroom account, this easily gets sent into my Google Classroom and assigned to my students, and I can manage it that way. I can also share this project via email to any of my students. Leveraging CurrikiGo, this is where there's also opportunities to publish directly to leading learning management systems. So if I go back into Victory Lap and say, I want to publish my Why Sales curriculum, I now have the option to publish, and I can publish to Moodle, or I can publish to Canvas. So to show you kind of the round trip experience of this, I am logged into my Canvas dashboard, and just our Curriki version. I do not see anything with Victory Lap here. Not yet. Oh, and actually, instead of publishing, sorry. I'm going to publish the entire course instead of just one playlist. So I go to Victory Lap, I click this button, I can now publish, and I'm going to go ahead and publish to my Canvas demo. Click Canvas. It now asks me, it will be added or created or update. I will hit continue. It is publishing. So essentially, Leo Cunha, our CTO, is the chief architect behind all of this using the IMFS Global LTI standard. And we'll talk a little bit about what's happening behind the scenes as we push this over. This publishing is something that is configured by an administrator, but then provides easy ability to publish for anybody that's then within that institution. So it has been published. I will click OK. I'm going to go back to Canvas, reload my dashboard. And here it is at the bottom. So now what this means is, as an educator that uses Canvas as my learning management system, I can assign this. I can see data pass back of how my students did. I can preview what this looks like within the Canvas environment. So Curriki Studio becomes the authoring tool, and Canvas becomes essentially the opportunity for distribution. Wonderful. I do want to point out that there's a lot happening behind the scenes, and the Curriki Studio platform is very robust. We have launched a help center that provides documentation on how to create learning projects, how to configure publishing and sharing, and how to get started with Curriki Studio. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Leo Cunha to talk a bit about the vision and strategy behind CurrikiGo and what this means for a wide variety of our partners.
Leo, can I ask one question before you jump in there? 2 point-in-time questions that came up in the chat that may be relevant while you get logged in here, Leo. 3,
right.
Do you mind if we handle that just as a point in time with regards to creation in the studio? 1 being, if I create something in Studio, tag it and publish it, does that content become available for other educators? The other being, will the points be available in the gradebook? Maybe you want to just put a pin in those really quickly, and then we can move on to the publishing. So Abby, do you want to take it?
Absolutely, yes. So to answer the first question, The current version is set up so that you can publish, and that content can become available to all the users of your local learning system. The next piece that we're working on is a author-to-author collaboration. So, and one of the things I want to talk about is our roadmap, and maybe even get some feedback from you as to which one of those pieces are the most important. But to answer your question, yes. Once a piece becomes shared in the current version, it's available to that organization within the framework of their learning management system. And then on the next release, we're going to make it available so authors within CurrikiStudio can share their resources and remix and reuse, which is going to take us to a conversation about the purpose and vision of the product. And our objective is making sure that it's, number one, free and open, and number two, that it reduces barriers, both technical and cost barriers, to you as the end user. The other question about the grades is great, because it goes right into why we are using IMS standards. So these are interoperability standards, which include three major things. One of them, of course, the one you just saw, which is the actual sharing of content to many different consumers, to many different kinds of systems, whether they're learning management content systems or just a web page. And the other part has to do with what we call grade passback. So once the content is being viewed inside of a learning management system, it takes advantage of this functionality. So any of the exercises that you build with Studio that return a grade will be passed to the underlying LMS, to its grade book. So does that answer the question? Would we have more?
I'll collect the list here, and we can run through some of the other functionalities. I think perfect path to you.
Okay, so as the technology officer, I don't have any fancy slides or presentations. I'd rather just speak to you. So I'm going to ask Mark to join me up here from IMS, and also Mike, who is our integration specialist. I think it's better if we have a dialogue than a presentation. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce Mark is with IMFS Global. So if you want to talk a little bit about what IMS does, Mark, and then we'll see how that fits into our model for Curriki.
Well, great. Thank you. I appreciate that. IMFS Global is a nonprofit. We are focused exclusively on making integration simpler and better. And by doing that, we have the ability to lower costs and increase choice for the buying community, technical administrators, teachers, etc. And so we're very happy to be invited and be part of the Curriki story. I think they have a great story to tell. We currently have 560 members in our organization, and they're comprised of K-12 persons and individuals in administrative and technical roles, also higher ed. And then importantly, the education technology companies themselves are also members. And what we do at IMS is we guide collaboration to create a consensus-based set of open standards that can then be adopted by everyone. We give those standards away for free. And
So I think we lost the audio on Mark, but I'm going to go ahead and pick up right here. So the guiding directive of our product is really the same as IMS's, right? We want to make sure that we decrease the barrier to delivery of great educational experiences. So how we do that?
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now, yes.
Yeah, I can't explain that, but my apologies. Thank you, Leo. Nonprofit, we are member-based, and we focus on collaboration. And through our consensus building process, we develop and distribute for free the open standards that create choice and ultimately accessibility to technology in the marketplace. One of the key things that we offer in that regard is a certification service. Therefore, buyers can come and find out who is actually certified at implementing a particular standard. And that's very valuable to ensure what we call a plug and play ecosystem. I would welcome everyone who's not familiar with IMFS Global to please go over to the website, and you'll see our annual report. And in there, you'll learn about all of the things that IMFS is doing for the community, and welcome your further involvement.
All right.
Leo, would you want me to step through LTI Advantage at this point?
Well, before we do that, I wanted to give a little primer to everybody and talk about how we came to this point. So Curriki originally was the first open educational resources library. And what we did was we welcomed input from mostly teachers so that they could share things like course outlines and best practices, and became a relatively popular tool among teachers. And we realized that we needed to extend this and actually get to the point that we could deliver instruction directly to the students. And to do that, we started building on top of many different kinds of open source technology. And so everything that we do is also based on other open and free projects. And by the fact that we're open, any one organization can take our code, can take our content, and use it for themselves. So I want to talk a little bit about the distribution model. So if you wanted to use CurrikiStudio, there's no restriction that would keep you or your organization from using it. So if you look at products like WordPress, if you look at LibreOffice, which is free and open suite of Office products, so we're following the exact same philosophy. So there is no barrier. So anybody can look at our code, can help us contribute to it. Anybody can contribute content. And then, of course, we believe that the community of users are going to filter the really good content to the top, bubble it up, and start to build a dialogue. So we want to use technology to build dialogue. That's the real driving force behind what we're doing. And when we talked about how can you use this, we offer a cloud platform. So if you are a single user that wants to try it out, you're free to go in and try it. We do have some limitations that Keith is going to talk about as far as some of the amount and size of content we can support for free on our platform. You can also go to one of the major cloud vendors, be it Amazon, Microsoft Azure, Linode, any of the major cloud providers. So we're very open and non-competitive on where you can install Curriki Studio and CurrikiGo. And once you have it installed in your organization or for you personally, then you can start publishing. And so I'm going to let Mike talk a little bit about the different ways that we can support sending content out to all these different consumers, right? So we don't want to restrict your choice of what tool you want to use to deliver instruction. So that's the other goal, is number one, to make it really easy and fast to build things. So our platform needs to be free and open by itself. Being able to distribute that content very easily and quickly and make that also free and available.
Yeah, thanks, Leo. I think the real one of the real drivers here with using IMFS Global is to accelerate. One of the questions that came out of I saw in the chat was, do you do Blackboard? While we don't do it today out of the box, it's something that can be done very quickly. Right now, we're using LTI version 1.3, which is the latest version to do all of our handshaking and connections with the the LMS, and then we're using the local APIs to do some work. our next step in this IMS journey is going through what Mark's going to show here around LTI Advantage, and we're going to start adopting deep linking and some of the assignment activities, which will really allow us to make it so that you can any LMS that supports these LTI Advantage standards. There's really no special work or configuration from the tool perspective. It's strictly a configuration on configuring the platform and exchanging some keys, and you're up and running. So that is the path we're going down, and to continue taking advantage as these new services become available, and even some of the ones that we've created, could become future LTI Advantage services as well.
So what I wanted to do, Mike, is it ties right into one of the questions that that's come up from Mary Lee. So, as we talk about how the information passes, from CurrikiStudio to the learning management systems, or maybe I'll let Mark start the discussion, of the different ways that we can share things. So if you think about the interoperability standard, the ones you just saw demoed by Abby, relate to, the distribution of content to, a variety of learning systems. But then there's other pieces, and the fancy names for them are grade passback and deep linking. So I wanted Mark to explain that in much simpler terms. How does that work? So once the content is there and the students can see it, what happens behind the scenes? And we're not going to get too technical, but I want to discuss these concepts of the grade passback, the deep linking, which makes also answers the next question is, how to make this thing so that it can be discoverable. How can people find it, reuse it, remix it? So I'll let you address those from a standards perspective, Mark.
The diagram in front of us, is my audio okay now?
Oh yeah, it's great. Mm-hmm.
The diagram shows the role of LTI is a type of broker that establishes a trusted connection between a learning platform like a Canvas and a tool like CurrikiGo, for example. And the LTI core, as it's called, performs a number of functions that ensure that the connection is secure, that the contract, if you will, between the two parties is well developed and appropriate. So privacy and security is number one for these standards. And it's an important theme that goes through all of the IMS work. So building on top of this core are additional services that can be added and taken advantage of by a product company. So deep linking is used often when you have the ability to basically shop for content in a learning object repository and select a variety of different parts of the library, and by clicking and selecting and then saying, okay, I'm done. Now I want to bring that content back in the form of links into the course. And so deep linking is used as a way to simplify the process of finding and inserting content links.
So if I can put that in perspective, Mark, what you saw right now is your ability to push, basically to go to bookshelf and buy the book, and have it on your bookshelf. The deep linking is more like a shopping cart when you go into the supermarket and picking the different groceries that you want to, check out with at the end of the day, and add them directly to your course. So we're going to be, right now we're supporting that first model. And then what Mike and our relationship with IMF is letting us work towards the second model that somebody just asked about, how do you use this? Well, it's a lot easier if you're already inside your learning management system, and you can cherry pick the activities that you want to add to your course.
Right, and often that could be an ad hoc kind of function that you're doing because you've learned that it's necessary to support a particular gap that might exist. The the assignment and grade services does certainly support grade pass back, and I've seen the references to that, but also the teacher or the evaluator can provide qualitative feedback, and that information can be captured and brought into the grade book if it's appropriate. You can have a tool that actually may not even have been launched directly by the learner, still being able to basically what is called own grade book columns. And so it's a much more robust, fully functional shared data service around the grade book. So if you think about ways that two tools and products can communicate around grades, that's what assignment and grade services provide.
So Mark,
yeah.
So to put things in perspective, and one of the things that we wanted to get out of this webinar is to get your, meaning the audiences with us, to help us drive what's some of the more important things. So right now we tackle the first part is how do we get to create really great interactive content? How do we take the very passive kinds of things we had in the past, the PDFs, the Word documents, the PowerPoints, and turn them into some really interactive pieces of instruction? So we feel pretty good about that part. Then the second part is how do we take this content and deliver it using standard technologies that we've been discussing to a wide variety of different learning systems. And I think we're in pretty good shape as far as that goes. The next piece is what do we do next? You know, we have the grade pass back, we have the, this deeper link sharing, the shopping cart model. And then the other thing that's really exciting that I wanted Mark to talk about is this concept of a student portfolio. So, we are one participant in that learning management system of yours, but there's going to be other, both open source and non-open source contributors to that. So how do we take all this and turn it into something viable for the student, for the learner, so they do have a complete portfolio of what it is that they're learning?
As a portfolio of open standards that support the entire teaching and learning ecosystem. So if you can think of the various enrollment, engagement, assessment, they're all supported. What Leo was just referencing is what's called the comprehensive learner record. You, chances are well aware of Open Badges, which was a project originally initiated by the Mozilla Foundation. A few years ago, they approached us at IMS and asked us to take responsibility for moving the standard forward. And so our membership, in conjunction with the American Association of College Registrars and Admissions Officers, developed the Comprehensive Learner Record, which is it's a official record that is the learning achievements that a learner has demonstrated through the course of their academic career and even into employment. The record is designed to travel with the learner across their lifelong journey. So we'd be very happy to, perhaps at another time, Leo, come back and share more about that.
Thanks, Mark. So now I wanted to get back to some of the nuts and bolts. Don asked the question about how do you get instructions on how to integrate Curriki to Canvas, and that's actually Mike's field of expertise. He's doing all those hard configurations. So when we talk about this, one-click integration, it's not magic. So ahead of time, we have to go and connect to your learning management system, especially because we have to abide by all the security protocols. So I'm going to let Mike talk through a little bit of how it is that we get the data from Curriki Studio to the LMS, without getting into a lot of the technical details. But at least he can take you through the flow. How does a piece of instruction move through from Curriki Studio, through Go, and finally to your LMS?
Sure, thanks, Leo. So it actually is pretty simple from the from the user perspective. The administrator would have to add a Curriki plugin to their LMS, And in addition, the idea of creating a token, a shared token, that we would then also create one for you. It's the classic secret key situation where you create a token in your environment. We take that in, we give you a token back, and you put that in, and you associate it either to an administrator or a curriculum director or whatever the root level is you want that relationship between Studio and the LMS to be.
For somebody who's an LMS administrator, that's what, about a 5, 10, 15-minute process?
Yeah, it's strictly, especially the LMSs that have, which most all the leading LMSs do have IMFS Global support. It's really it's a standard configuration for any of these. We were on with the district earlier today, and they literally said, you're the 10th one of these I've done, in the last couple of weeks. So it is your LMS administrator is probably pretty familiar with the steps it takes to configure these things, and then it's an exchange of a couple of tools. Where you have lots of flexibility is what level you want that sharing to be. How many of these keys do you want? You want it to be just at the root? You want it to be different administrators for different content? There's a lot of flexibility there. And Mark, you might even have some more to say on some of this, because we're really leveraging the core LTI for a lot of this initiation.
Oh, I think that was great. Thanks, Mike.
All right, so there are a couple of questions. One of them has to do, are we going to look at also integrating this with the ISTE standards, which is another standards body? And the answer is yes. And then the other question is, how do we handle face-to-face interactions and teacher-to-classroom interactions? So right now, on this particular release, we're handling the flipped classroom model, or the self-guided instruction model, and we are quite aware of that. We also using the same framework by looking at open source tools that have equivalents in the commercial market. If we look at what are the kinds of collaborative tools that we need to integrate into the system so that we can emulate or support those face-to-face interactions, so like we're having right now, right? So there are open source tools in our arsenal that would allow us to have the same kind of experiences that we have right now. So the next piece that we're looking at is adding the same functionality that you see here, that you get through Zoom, through Microsoft Teams, through this product right here, but integrate them with the system so that it's both free and open. And so there's a couple of products that we are weighing that's going to give us the same experience that we're having right here, but that you could have within your LMS and provided through an open source solution. So collaboration is the next big, huge story that we're working on. We look at two different kinds of collaborations. One of them between the authors, the people creating content, and the other one between the learners themselves, and really three, and one between the instructor and the learner. So those are the three areas of focus that we're going to engage in, and we would love to get feedback from you on, of the features that you know of and that you value. Do you think are going to have the most impact, for, at the end of the day, for the student, for the learner? All right, so are there any questions on the technical side? We didn't want to dig too deeply into the implementation. All our software is open source, including the connectors that would be the plugins that would be installed in the LMSs. So any organization is open to inspect them, to contribute to them. There's no secrets, there's no smoke and mirrors. It's just hard work and a lot of help from other organizations that are providing, their own blood, sweat, and tears to build open source. Okay, Mary Lee, we're gonna take all these notes, and hopefully we'll be able to communicate back with you and the other participants. So I'm gonna go ahead and let Keith Kostrzewski, our CEO, give us some closing thoughts, and after that we can answer any other questions that come up. We'll all be around. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Leo. I'll hop on here for a moment. Mark, thank you so much for the insight. It's wonderful having subject matter experts speaking on our behalf, but also sharing the wonderful work that you're doing. So wonderful. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Great questions for you and the organization. So I'll take a few moments here to run through some of the questions that we have outstanding, and I'll dive into that regard. One that jumped out at me, and we've seen some. I'll address this and pass over to Abby. But as the question, I think both Nick and Priscilla addressed, how do I take our content and existing content, and it's not about just creating new assets for learners, but how do we take the years of classroom best practices and assets that you've used for years in the classroom or as a curriculum director and made those investments? And we'd like to separate this into almost two pathways. We are here to help you activate the existing assets that you've created that may have been more static in the past. And probably more importantly now is that they've been designed for a classroom instruction setting. So how do we take those wonderful assets that you've built and have been effective in your classrooms and now make them more accessible to learners in a self-paced mobile or digital format? So absolutely, I believe it's Priscilla that asked the question. We're here to help you transition the work you've done for 30 years in effective teaching and learning and modify that and activate that for the new modes of today. And Nick, one of your questions about face-to-face that we've been having conversations with interested parties and users is leveraging some of those recorded sessions via either Zoom or some recorded sessions that educators are using, and using the interactive video component of our tool set and turning them into, yes, recorded lectures or lessons, but ones that are now interactive where you can have those timed pauses on, try to mimic as much as you can of that classroom experience where you would pause and get feedback and interaction from your students. So we've had some really great use cases of video and turning those into interactives as well. So we can dive into that a little bit deeper. You can reach out to Abby and myself for that. So I just wanted to address those two questions. Abby, there's three that I'd like to point your direction, if you wouldn't mind taking the lead on here. One that we received quite a bit of questions in the chat here, and we've heard from our users as well, is regarding offline capabilities. So using Studio, what can we do with the projects and playlists that are created for an offline usage? The other question here being, clarify a bit if you can, the Studio, Go, and library components. Those are two rocks that I think would be worth the time here for the larger audience. Thank you.
So in terms of the offline component, I'd say we've got a lot of ideas and a lot of feedback on how we can meet students where they are, regardless of internet access and bandwidth, and still give them a really dynamic and interactive experience. There's a couple ways that we're thinking about going about that. Kind of one that is on the most immediate roadmap has to do with being able to download Curriki Studio and all of the kind of creations as a self-executable, which provides some opportunities for if you do have technology resources or integrations resources, there are some opportunities to be able to take that and put it into some sort of on-premise kind of environment where you can then bring things in for students to be able to interact with. We do have ways to make that easier in Studio for teachers to publish and share so that you can put it in a modality that makes the most sense for that. The other thing that I do want to kind of promote here is that all of the activities, playlists, projects that are created in Curriki Studio are mobile friendly by design, so that while students might not have access to, wildly, high degrees of streaming and bandwidth, being able to create and publish something that is accessible for a mobile device might be one way to kind of circumvent some of those issues right away. So, kind of in summary, on the roadmap with then some short and long-term things. In terms of then the relationship between Curriki Studio, CurrikiGo, and Curriki Library, I wish I had a better visual. Curriki Studio is where you build the content. CurrikiGo is essentially the connector code for how you can enable distribution to where you want that to live. And Curriki Library, which is really what Curriki's been known for the past 12 years, is going to continue to be a repository. The kind of Curriki before was a lot of PDFs and some of that static content. It is our vision to create really activated content in Curriki Library that has been published to Curriki Studio. So ultimately, you know, continue to think of Curriki Library as a go-to resource for some of the best-in-class interactive learning experiences that people can share in that vein of open and free education. If you are an institutional partner or enterprise partner that wants to think about, well, how can I use the idea of building a library for my district, for my users, for my business, we would love to talk to you about what you would envision with that library, as we have a lot of stuff that can kind of be ready to rock and roll with that right away.
Abby, I appreciate that, and we will note the to add some more visuals on the differentiation between the Curriki suite of tools, and thank you for highlighting that. I'd like to just answer two other questions with regards to single sign-on, and it scrolled up who it came from. But with regards to single sign-on, we really want to serve the purpose of a high-quality authoring tool that allows educators to publish and push these learning assets to the learning management system or where your students are living at that time and interacting with your content. So we would really put the single sign-on capability onto the systems such as the learning management systems we mentioned earlier, content management systems that you use. And that's where we feel that that's where those student interactions should take place. As Abby and Leo have alluded to as well, these assets can be sent via links or delivered on web pages, etc. But that's not necessarily tied to a student data capture tool. So we'd love to talk about your ideas, knowing now a little bit more about our process. We'd love to hear from you on what you're thinking in that regard. And if there is a gap that you see in delivering instruction, we can collaborate on what you might like to see there, or we have some other solutions and some of the support organizations that we've worked with that may be about to fill that gap. So hopefully that answers that question. The second component here that was mentioned in the chat as well, and I've received an email during this conversation, is with regards to adult learning and professional development, as well as, and I'll take it one step further, about considering using a tool like CurrikiStudio for communication to parents. And as we know, with the hybrid nature of learning in and out of school and the uncertainty on when things become to a more solid state, if you will, communication to parents in so many of our communities is essential. So we know the hard work that school systems and universities are doing with prepping their professors and teachers for delivering online instruction, but this is a whole new world for parents and caregivers. So consider leveraging a tool, the tools in CurrikiStudio, to create videos and some learning engagement opportunities for parents and caregivers who are now in the lowercase homeschool market during this distance learning environment. So just a food for thought there. And that same application would play well to the professional development and professional learning and coaching of your teachers who are just so used to teaching in the classroom and are so well versed in that modality. So the CurrikiStudio set of tools, wonderful for student engagement and learner-centered, but remember lifelong learning, and really want to position the tool as a resource for adult learning and some of those ongoing coaching that may be a little bit more difficult to deliver without the lack of opportunities for in-person instruction. So a few questions I've received in the chat and directly to me, so I wanted to take a moment to address those. So I wanted to take a time to, it looks like we had about 55 attendees today, which great, wonderful engagement. Thank you so much for the time. Please reach out. I will include my email on the follow-up communications if you have any questions with regards to product or implementation that we can clarify for you. There are multiple different modes of implementation, and Leo has mentioned a few. The enterprise and institution instances, which we feel could bring tremendous value to you and your school systems and educational institutions. is in process, and we're close to announcing some really nice partnerships and collaborations with managed service providers to ease the burden on implementation there as well for the larger organizations. So thank you very much for your time. We look forward to speaking with you again. Please reach out. We will be sending a recording of this session as well as a list of some the popular Q&A. So if you didn't jot those down today, trust we will get you that information squared away. And follow us on social for updates and increased functionality and future webinars. So with that, thank you very much for your time today, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.